We're back on this mountain, just where we left off on the last episode, and I told you guys that I saw that underwater city in the distance. Now, let me find a way down this mountain, and while I'm doing that, I can give you a little bit of a rundown of what this set is, being Aquapolis. This is the second set in the E series of Pokemon cards, which released in 2003, on January 15th. This set features a total of 186 cards, so this set is absolutely the biggest set that we've ever covered on the entire channel so far. This set also features many new artists who will be featured in the future, as well as being another set to feature secret rare cards. Something else to note about Aquapolis is that the holographic cards are separated into their own subset, being listed H1 through H32. These are just regular cards in Aquapolis, but holographic. But since they're listed weird on Cerebi, I'll just cover them at the end. It looks like my old gear won't really be necessary for this expedition, so let me put on something a little bit more appropriate. Hold on. Yes, perfect. This is it. This nice little flannel will suffice perfectly fine. Ah, it looks like we made it to the bottom of the mountain. Finally, all I can see is empty desert. It looks empty and barren. Why would I think that an aquatic city would be anywhere near here? Oh, wait. Hold on. Oh, now I see it. Let me just go in that direction, and we can talk about the trainer cards first. Milky Sobe is a name that I'm sure you're used to hearing at this point, with the reprints of the Darkness and Metal Energy in the set, which were already reprinted in Expedition, but we needed them in this set, so I'll give him a pass. Takumi Akabane returns from Team Rocket to reprint the Rainbow Energy into Aquapolis, which is the same design that we saw in Team Rocket, with the little energy and the little colorful rings around it. Shinichi Yoshikawa returns from Expedition to illustrate 5 new cards for Aquapolis, being the Memory Berry, which features 2 berries lying on the floor, with vines around them, with a nice glisten can be seen on the Memory Berry. The Time Shard, which features a charm hanging off of what looks to be an underwater log, as some kind of creature hangs around behind it. The Boost Energy, which showcases a stormy cloud in the background as 3 colorless energies are featured in the middle, and a neat little white outline can be seen around the energies. I think you can also see rain in the background. Then, finally, the Crystal Energy, which shows a bunch of different colors clashing in the middle, as the energy contains all the different colors, which is a cool concept. Also, I forgot to mention, Yoshikawa also worked on the Healing Berry for the set, which is a berry that lies in a field. These cards are interesting, and Yoshikawa is clearly pretty talented when it comes to making interesting looking cards. An artist that we haven't seen in a second is Jungo Suzuki, who previously worked on the Remoraid from Neo Destiny, but now did the Weakness card from Aquapolis, which shows a Charmander literally trapped in a bubble with a cool black and blue background, which looks pretty cool. Suzuki has more cards in the future, so we'll see them again. Another returning artist is Big Mama Tagawa, who worked on 8 cards for Aquapolis, but they're all just cubes representing the different types, so I'll show off a few here, but these cards really are just cubes with energies on them, so there's not much of note, but I'm sure that they were useful in the TCG. Kazuo Yazawa is a new artist for the TCG in Aquapolis, being the person who illustrated the Pokemon Park, which shows Cyndaquil jumping up as Chikorita bounds forward and Pikachu walks along with a smile on its face. I like this card. It's cute for what it is, being just a simple trainer, but I like it, and we'll see more Yazawa in the future, so that's good. Kai Ishikawa is an artist who worked on 1 card for Aquapolis, being the power plant, which shows off a stadium with electricity surging from a power plant, which is pretty cool. And it's not just a reprint of another card, and we won't see the power plant ever again, I don't think. Our next artist is Ken Sugimori, who worked on 6 cards for Aquapolis. First off being the Forest Guardian, which stands next to a Noctowl. The vibe of this card is a little spooky, with a dark background. Then, the Juggler, that juggles Pokeballs as people around him watch in awe. The Pokemon Fan Club shows off a club holding up a Pichu, while other Pokemon hang out in the background. The Seer shows someone throwing up 2 Pokeballs as they look toward the camera, with a blood red background. The town volunteers show people helping out a Hoot Hoot and a squirrel in a nice field. And finally, the traveling salesman shows off some wares and goods that they're most likely selling, and Pokeballs come out of the little compartments that he has. Sugimori's trainers are always interesting, so I'm glad that that's what he's doing in this era. We're finally done with this long, endless, dry walkway. Finally, the beach. This looks to be our last stop before the underwater city. While we're here on the beach, let's just talk about some regulator cards that some of the artists worked on for the set. A new artist introduced in Aquapolis, Hizuki Mizono, who worked on 2 cards for Aquapolis, which are the Centret, which stands next to a tree that covers its mouth up, and the Mareep, which frolics in the field with some mountains in the background. These cards are kind of reminiscent of Mori's clay cards, but it looks like a different style of clay, and for 2 new cards, they're quite nice. The next artist is a mainstay who received 4 cards in Aquapolis, being Keiji Kinebuchi, and these are actually the last unique cards that they ever illustrated for the Pokemon TCG, which is actually really sad, as this artist has been with the TCG since all the way back in base set. Seeing them go so soon really stinks, but at least for his final cards, Kinebuchi was able to do 2 Pokemon, being the Grimer, which has its mouth open as it stands in a dark alleyway, and it looks up at the camera, and the Voltorb, which looks to the right as its eyes furl to make it look upset. The super energy removal too shows many energies flowing around in a circle, and the warp energy showcases an energy that has blue lines coming from the top and the bottom, and on the side, deep dark deep blue is on the left and right. Overall, Kinebuchi's cards are really nice, especially the Pokemon. Too bad these are the last cards that Kinebuchi officially worked on, as the rest were all just straight reprints, so we will see his name in the future, but, it won't mean anything, unfortunately. Toshino Aoki worked on 2 cards for the set, being the Kangaskhan, which looks forward as its nice shading effect is behind it, and the Pinsir, which looks forward with an evil grin on its face, as it holds onto the rocks around it, and sun rays can be shown peeking through the top of the canopy. A new artist working on Aquapolis is Midori Harada, who worked on 7 cards for the set, being the Cubone, which is either juggling bones or levitating with his mind, and the background has a nice purple to orange gradient. The Eevee, which runs into a city, and it looks behind it, with its big and fluffy tail that can be seen. The Houndour, which is mid-action as it looks to the right, and a bunch of rocks are around it with some grass seen below it. Scyther looks back and primes its scythe and its wings can be seen on full display. The Sneasel is crawling along the ground and it's surrounded by lush plants. The apricorn forest is a stadium, as it can be seen carved out. There are a bunch of apricorn trees around the stadium, which I like a bit. And finally for Harada, the Undersea Ruins, which looks to be another stadium, but this one has rocks and pillars around it that you can see light peeking through the water. Overall, for first cards, Harada really knocked it out of the park, and I quite enjoy all the cards that they worked on for Aquapolis. Our next artist is one who worked on 5 cards for Aquapolis, being Keiko Fukuyama, who hasn't worked on any cards since a mini set, Southern Islands, which I will be covering after our next set. But for Aquapolis, they worked on the Bellsprout, which holds apricorns as they walk along, the Nidoran, which looks forward as a rainbow can be seen in the background, and the Vulpix, which plays with an apricorn as bushes of apricorns are behind it, the Psyduck, which swings on a little swing as it smiles with a cool little park in the background. And it looks like it's being held together with little Pokeballs, though we can't really see the top of the swing, funnily enough. Also, the Wooper, which has another Wooper next to it, as they try to ride umbrellas in a lake. Overall, Fukuyama's cards are all very cute. They provide character to the Pokemon represented, and they are all quite cute, like I said. Our next artist is Miki Tanaka, who worked on 7 cards for Aquapolis, being the Victory Bell, which is over on its side, as it appears to be spewing some kind of gas out of its mouth, and the trees are in the background. The Weepin' Bell, which can just be seen smiling, as it's surrounded by some foliage. The Goldeen, which smiles derpily as it careens through the water. The Paris, which just stands still as leaves almost cover it, and a lush forest surrounds it. The Smeargle, which looks to have just finished the painting, and it sleeps next to a tree. The Spinarak, which stands on top of the tree line, as it looks down onto the pathway below it. And finally, the Togepi, which walks along the pathway and smiles, as flowers are on either side of it. These Tanaka cards are all really quite cute, and I like these cards quite a bit, because of that simplistic Tanaka style. Ayakusube was able to work on the full Slowpoke evolution line, starting with the Slowbro, which dives under the water as a Magikarp swims away from it, which looks really nice. The Slowking, which overlooks an island as it sits on a rock and smiles. And finally, the Slowpoke, which sleeps on the floor and its tail coils around its body. The leaves around it are also a nice touch. These cards have a lot lighter outlines than Kusube's cards from Expedition, but the cards still look really nice, and you can still tell that Ayakusube worked on them. Another returning artist is Tomokazu Kamiya, who has returned from Expedition to work on 6 cards for Aquapolis, being the Primeape, which punches the ground and as apricorns fly up into the air, the Tyrogue, which grabs at the camera and looking super upset, as its other hand is balled up into a fist. The Hitmonchan swings its fist back and forth, as it looks super concerned. The Hitmontop kicks as it's spinning, while also looking a little concerned. The Mankey looks backwards as it looks at a rainbow, and you can see apricorns around it. Then finally, the Tangela looks even more concerned as it hangs from a branch, as houses can be seen in the background, with a lot of grass and foliage, and the clouds and mountains can be seen in the background. Another returning artist is Masako Yamashita, who worked on 4 cards for Aquapolis, being the Parasect, which sits next to a tree, the Bellsprout, which can be seen standing also as well near a tree, with some rocks on the side, the spin rack number 62, which is going out of some kind of building, or a box, and the Porygon, which seems to be sitting in some kind of little vortex, as it's surrounded by a bunch of objects. I like these cards, as they're all giving something unique to the table, especially the spin rack, with all those different colors. Now, we can talk about a new artist, who only worked on 3 cards, but in their career, they've worked on so many cards for the TCG, being Koki Saito. They worked on the Octillery, which can be seen looking back and to the left, with some ruins behind it, and waves crashing in the bottom. The Rapidash, which bounds through the scene with some speed lines indicating how fast it's going. And finally, for Aquapolis, the Miltank, which looks upwards as it does something? I don't know. But there's grass and flowers behind it, and a rocky mountain as well. For first cards, Koki Saito can be shown to be a talented artist who has a knack for making appealing and pleasant cards. Yukamori returns to make some more clay-mated cards for the set. The Jumpluff smiles as one of its arms swings down and surrounded by blurred grass. The Lantern swims along as some rocks are behind it as it swims through the water. The Skiploom smiles as it looks forward with another blurry background. The Chinchou illuminates the floor behind it, and there are bricks underneath it. And of course, it's under the water. The Hoppip looks down with another blurry background, and the Lickitung has its tongue completely extended as it looks forwards, with some leaves around it. Overall, these clay cards are nice by Mori, and they show a nice little different look from how they used to, with slightly darker colors overall. Our next artist is Yukiko Baba, who illustrated 8 cards for the set. The Executor sits on a rock with a lake behind it, as the middle head smiles and looks to the right. The Dodrio looks in a field with all of its heads looking to the left. The Marill sits on top of one of those things they put on top of the stores and shops, as it smiles and raises one of its arms. The Voltorb looks suspiciously to the right, as it floats in the city. The Doduo stands behind it in the same field that the Dodrio stood in, but from what it looks like, I think it's a crop circle. The Execute stands in the middle of a bunch of leaves, as all the eggs look in different directions. The Growlithe looks as it stands off some kind of pillar, and a watchtower can be seen in the background. The final card that Baba worked on in Aquapolis was the Mr. Mime, which raises one of its arms and looks upwards, and a city in the background can be seen as well. Baba's cards are all very distinctive and fit well in the set. But for this set, I think I'm going to try to separate it into 2 videos to make it a little bit easier on myself. So I'll see you in part 2. I'll probably try to mesh them into the same video at some point, so we'll see what happens. Thanks for watching.